Most people view the baby boom as a mere statistic, 76 million children appearing within the echoes of World War II. But on June 22, 1944, a man near the end of his life saw a different reality when, in reading 3976-29, Edgar Cayce described a mission, seeing that you did not arrive by accident but were deployed, calling your generation a wave of veteran souls, ancient, experienced, and forged in the fire of previous eras. You volunteered to return during this specific window of time to stand as a living bridge for the transition of 2026. And since the clock has run out on vaults where files deemed too heavy for the public mind were locked for 80 years, if you are breathing right now, you are part of this contract. So listen to the data proving Edgar Cayce was not a psychic, and that what happens exactly 180 minutes after the physical heart stops is the first clue to your true identity. As a brilliant reader of Universal Files in March 1929, while Wall Street celebrated endless wealth, Cayce looked beyond the charts to see the crash coming in exactly 6 months via reading 2741 before the global economy imploded 180 days later, using the science that silences the skeptics to provide a recording in reading 3976-10, not a guess, where he saw the rise, saw the fall, and named the exact dates for the start and the end of World War II, long before the first tank crossed a border. Since Cayce's 1933 reading 404205 described a concentrated beam of light for surgery and defense, detailing the laser 27 years before the first one was ever built in 1960, he didn't merely predict the future, but access the record, believing every act, word, and event is etched into the energy field of this planet. Thus, because his track record defies the laws of probability, we cannot ignore what he saw for the year 2026, now that the file for your generation is finally active. Originating from a sacred agreement signed before your first 1945 breath, your sense of not belonging is a design rather than a defect, as Edgar Cayce identified in reading 3976-29, a massive strategic arrival of souls to Earth. Seeing not new spirits but veterans who watch the rise and fall of previous empires and remember the patterns of chaos. They willingly returned amidst the post-war brokenness to serve as a vital link. If your birth year falls between 1945 and 1965, you agreed to a pact to hold the center. 1 foot of your existence is firmly rooted in the bygone era, a realm of custom, obligation, and rigorous discipline. Your other foot stretches toward an unfolding dawn of technological advancement and evolving awareness. You were forged to be a stabilizing force. Humanity required those who could watch the tempest gather without losing their steady footing. Because Edgar Cayce was not interested in vague theories, you can truly know if your soul carries this specific signature of the agreement you signed before birth, now moving into its final phase, by observing the precise signs written in your daily habits. Especially a deep type of weariness that sleep cannot touch, which proves why your early life was often defined by friction, since wisdom is not a gift, but is earned in the fire where you had to experience the breaking to understand the healing. He provided distinct signs to recognize those entrusted with this age-old purpose. Reflect on your personal history and weigh these 5 indicators against your own life. The first sign is spiritual exhaustion. In reading 57531, Cayce detailed a profound tiredness that no amount of time off can cure. This fatigue is not of the body, but rather the energetic burden of holding the memories of countless past incarnations. Should you wake up drained despite a full night's sleep, your spirit is undoubtedly a veteran of ancient battles. The second sign is deliberate displacement. You have never truly belonged within your family, your friend group, or any community. Cayce explained that this was intentional. A bridge soul has to stay impartial, because aligning with a single side strips away your power to link the 2 realms. Marker 3, forensic intuition. You perceive the crack before the glass shatters. You get a pit in your stomach right before a structure collapses or a bond dissolves. This is merely your soul identifying cycles it has witnessed across the centuries. Marker 4, the frequency of safety. Recognizing how many of these markers resonate with you, such as marker 5, the waiting room, where your veteran soul emits a stabilizing signal that instinctively draws total strangers in chaotic crises to stop and reveal their deepest secrets, just as Cayce noted. leaves a quiet voice in your chest confirming that, regardless of age, all past experiences were merely rehearsals for the main event of your most important work yet to come. Recognize them, for we are now nearing the most heavily restricted record in the entire dossier. It contains a precise account of what your awareness undergoes exactly 180 minutes after your heart ceases to beat. Picture the exact second your heart fails. The room falls completely quiet. In the eyes of the medical community, you are dead. Yet based on reading 5749-1, your transition is only just starting. Edgar Cayce spoke of a binding link, a silver cord forged from pure energy. As the line of light that connects your soul to your physical chest does not snap instantly, but takes exactly 180 minutes, 3 hours, to fully release, you are not in a dark tunnel during this window, but are witnessing a shift in resolution where the hospital room begins to fade like a photograph left in the sun for too long, making the walls, the machines, and the people become completely transparent, just as the world of frequency becomes solid. As nameless colors emerge and your 360-degree review begins without an angry God or external judgment, your soul peacefully views the data during this 3-hour window, finally understanding the 1945 contract and realizing your scars were not failures, but tools built for 2026. At the exact moment you remember who you are, when the 3-hour window closes and the silver cord finally breaks, you do not simply drift into a void by mere luck. Rather, you are irresistibly pulled by the law of frequency, a fundamental law of physics that Cayce warned us about decades ago, toward our solar system, which Edgar Cayce described in reading 57492 as a massive university where the planets in our sky function not just as barren rocks, but as powerful energy stations. Just like a radio where you only hear the music of the exact station you are tuned to, your soul instinctively gravitates toward the frequency it carries. If your life was heavy with anger, resentment, or greed, your high density pulls you to Saturn, a slow-motion cleansing ground to confront your ignored shadows. But if you practice peace, service, and compassion, your frequency remains beautifully and freely light. Since your veteran soul born between 1945 and 1965 has visited these higher stations before, this training manual information will guide you as you move toward the expansion of Jupiter, a 7-level system of vast intelligence and blinding clarity where survival is not a reward or punishment, but simple physics. Because a heavy soul cannot endure a high-frequency station, which would be like trying to plug a low-volt light bulb into a nuclear reactor. Because the modern world often feels so small and hollow to you, if your internal arc is unready as we approach 2026, the shifting signal of our planetary school moving to a higher grade will feel like a storm. For the Earth is not a cold rock floating in space, but a living antenna raising its own frequency, entering a window of time Edgar Cayce saw in Reading 397615, where the planet would literally change its skin. Although his predicted shifting of the poles was dismissed for decades, today the data from NOAA is flashing red as the North Magnetic Pole is no longer where it should be, racing away from Canada towards Siberia at a speed of 55 km every year in a recorded planetary event, not a theory, confirming Cayce warned that these geological breaks are actually mirrors of a spiritual break. As civilization grows heavy with greed and disconnection, the Earth develops a feverish shivering to shake off the toxic disaster. And as we approach the 2026 peak of our thinning magnetic shield, the planet's heartbeat, the Schumann resonance, is spiking in physics-defying ways that cause sudden anxiety and the feeling of accelerating time in your own nervous system. Your physical form is attempting to harmonize with a shifting planetary vibration. While countless individuals are constructing underground shelters to outlast this transition, the Cayce archives reveal a far more disturbing reality. Hiding in a subterranean hole offers no defense against an altering frequency. To endure what is approaching, you do not require a physical fortress. Rather, you must construct an ark within yourself. Why was your family dynamic so challenging? Why did you always feel like an outsider in the very house you grew up in? Within reading 257-211, Edgar Cayce delivered a stark clinical truth. You did not choose your parents because they were perfect, but rather because they were broken. Recognizing that every family carries a bloodline wound, A loop of anger, addiction, or silence lasting hundreds of years, like genetic chains passed from father to son and mother to daughter. The mission was heavy for the veteran souls born after 1945 who were deployed as chain breakers, volunteering to enter a family line that was stuck in a cycle of pain. Because you were the only one strong enough to stop the loop, you took on their trauma, debt, and shadows, not as punishment, but so that when you choose peace over rage or truth over secrets, a scientifically unmeasurable event occurs where, as Cayce said, your bi-directional healing cleans the records of your dead ancestors while also freeing the children who will come after you. Because you have carried the weight of being different for decades, your struggle was not a failure of life, but a successful soul operation. And as the 2026 window tightens, this internal work must become a collective signal to let the network know you are awake, beginning with a simple act of soul recognition that brought you to hear these words rather than by algorithms or mere chance. Because you have looked at the world and felt a deep, quiet longing for a home you could not describe, you now know why you are a veteran soul who never stands alone. And so I want you to look at the comments section of this video to see a map of the living bridge of thousands of others who arrived in that same window of time from 1945 to 1965. And I want you to acknowledge your contract as we create a signal right now, a frequency of awareness that the old world cannot block. Enter the year you landed on Earth along with two brief words. I remember. This isn't for my sake, but for the grid. By submitting this phrase, you declare to the cosmos that you have emerged from the haze. You are broadcasting that your inner framework is complete. Look at the years of those who came here alongside you and absorb the power of our shared foundation. As the 2026 threshold closes in, our unity will become far more precious than any money. Yet there remains one last record to unlock. Answering the deep, dangerous pull you feel toward the modern world's familiar technology and repeating choices, a secret about where you were before the baby boom began, involving a lost empire and a bluestone. Edgar Cayce, who didn't see Atlantis as a myth, revealed a truth in his largest collection of records, the 364 series, that will change how you look in the mirror. Because he saw it as a past reality for 70% of the people alive today, he explained that the souls who lived through the final days of Atlantis are the exact same ones returning for the year 2026, meaning that the deep anxiety you feel about our future is not fear of the unknown, but rather a profound soul memory of being there yourself to watch the great flood wash away the glorious peak of that ancient civilization. Yet what exact part did you play in that vanished realm, and what compelled you to return during this precise rupture in history? The records indicate that your emergence in 1945 was no fresh start, but rather a calculated reconnection. In our upcoming file, we will examine the proof confirming your identity as a survivor of Atlantis. We will expose the exact encoded skills you carried forward with you, along with the single catastrophic error we must never duplicate. Stay locked to this frequency. Welcome to the new Earth, where the map is yours to draw and the memory just begins returning.